The numbers are in, and without the Ontario provincial government rebates to buy an electric car, sales of electric vehicles have, you guessed it, plummeted. July 2018, Ontario's freshly elected Progressive Conservative Premier Doug Ford ended the subsidies the prior Liberal government was giving to electric car purchasers. Doug Ford also ended the subsidies the government was giving to big corporations and organizations that were then installing electric vehicle chargers. Now, here's the CBC article from the time. The program offers drivers between $5,000 to $14,000 to buy new environmentally friendly vehicles from a range of auto manufacturers, from Ford to GM to Tesla. Although the government has capped the vehicle purchase price at $75,000, after realizing the program meant taxpayers were subsidizing the purchase of some electric supercars, like a $1.1 million Porsche. Now, I thought canceling the program was a great move. Why on earth were beleaguered Ontario taxpayers subsidizing the novelty cars of wealthy people, just 3% of car buyers, helping them satiate their first world guilt by driving a car that just screams, "Look at me, everybody, I care about Mother Nature. Now, please ignore my transcontinental flights." And the industry, well, they predicted a plunge in EV sales. Look at this CBC article from July 2018, right after Ford canceled the EV program. David Adams, president of the Global Automakers of Canada Industry Association, said Friday that experience elsewhere shows that sales of electric vehicles take a hit when subsidies are removed, such as when British Columbia stopped and then restarted its program. When they canceled it, sales went down dramatically. And then when they reinstated it, sales went back up again. That is the same pattern that we've seen in other jurisdictions internationally, he said. Customers generally look for some kind of assistance in overcoming the extra cost of electric vehicles, Adams said. So instead of working on making the tech in electric cars cheaper for the consumer, the manufacturers, without, I guess, any shame whatsoever, kept making expensive electric vehicles because they knew people would be getting taxpayer-funded help to buy them, all while Ontarians struggle to pay their power bill. Okay. And this is all at a time when Moody's analysis found that automakers are currently losing about $7,000 to $10,000 per vehicle, and they will keep losing some amount on them for the next few years. So these cars are just expensive virtue signaling for the automakers too, not just for the buyers. The automakers are willing to lose money for their shareholders just to look greener than the next company. But let's get back to today's news. Let's take a look at this CBC article about the sales figures for electric cars in Ontario 1 year after the handouts were thankfully canceled. In the first 6 months of this year, sales in Ontario were down more than 55% from the same period in 2018, according to data from Electric Mobility Canada. In the second quarter of this year, 2,933 electric vehicles were sold in the province, down from 7,110 in the same period last year. And yet the activists, well, they want more publicly funded, government-built EV chargers to help rich people fuel their expensive toys. From the same CBC article, Al Cormier, the chair of Electric Mobility Canada, told CBC it would help if the government would put in place requirements for charging stations in new public buildings and garages. Earlier this year, the Ontario government removed a requirement for new homes to include wiring for potential electric vehicle charging stations, because why on earth would you wire for something you were never going to own anyway? Who wants to save money on the cost of a new home construction? I guess not the home builder. And yet, despite its wonderful repeal of subsidies around electric vehicles, the Ford government is legislating fines if you perpetrate a traffic crime against these cars. The Ontario government, at the behest of a Green Party backbencher, has amended the Traffic Act to include a $125 fine if you are behind the wheel of a good old reliable internal combustion engine parked in an electric vehicle stall. However, I guess things are really the same all over. Kian and I are back from our trip to Madrid to cover the United Nations Global Warming Conference. And Kian discovered, like I have in years gone by, that no one was driving electric cars at that big green carnival either. It might be one of those things that unite humanity despite all of our differences across time and space. To see all of our coverage from On the Ground in Madrid, as a couple of the few and far between skeptical journalists of both the global warming agenda and the United Nations in general, please go to rebelun.com. You've got to see all the hypocritical behavior we uncovered in Madrid. For Rebel News, I'm Sheila Gunn-Reid. To see all of our coverage from On the Ground and to help cover the cost to send Kian and I to Madrid to bring you the other side of the story from the United Nations Global Warming Conference, please go to rebelun.com.